to another session of Career Conversations with Amanda. I'm here with Josh from WBL, and today we are going to talk about no ghosting, the importance of communicating after receiving an offer. So Josh, you want to introduce yourself and WBL?
Yeah. So as Amanda mentioned, my name is Josh Reynolds. I'm the talent acquisition specialist here at WBL. We're a small to medium-sized public accounting firm located in the heart of Dunwoody. We've consecutively been ranked as one of the best accounting firms to work for, so we're doing pretty good.
Great, awesome.
Yeah.
So let's jump right into the topic. What do we mean by ghosting?
So ghosting in any career or any profession essentially is going to be whether it's either from the employer or the employee, essentially going unresponsive or lack of communication. We kind of see it as it's a two-way street. Again, as the employer, that can be, maybe not following up with a candidate or a potential candidate after an interview, and then vice versa from the candidate side. If an offer had been extended or, everything down to the beginning of that process, which could be simply interviewing. An interview has been scheduled, the candidate, agrees to, show up for the interview, and then at the last minute decide that they're not, going to attend the interview with no communication. So,
okay, great. So why is ghosting an issue? What is that? Why would we care about that?
So for the candidate side, we take time out to schedule these interviews. So in the event that the person doesn't show up, it essentially throws off the day for, not only the people who have taken the time out to interview, but that could also be a potential spot for someone else who, may have the opportunity to interview.
Right. It might be more interested in the firm or be a better fit.
Yeah. Yes.
Cool.
And at the same time, from the employer side, I think no one essentially takes one interview unless they just find the perfect fit right from the beginning. But it's respectful in regards to the candidate side, in regards to making sure that they're able to find something in a timely fashion, as well as just respecting what their day-to-day schedule will look like as well.
Okay, so that's, more on the interview side and things like that. What is important to remember about communication after maybe receiving an offer?
You definitely want to follow up. If a verbal offer were given or maybe even a written offer, most employers will say, hey, we're hoping to have a decision, within the next day, next 2 days. And it's important to follow up with the employer, because at the end of the day, you would hate for, the candidate or the person who's interviewed to say, hey, I have a week to decide, when the employer is, possibly thinking 2 or 3 days. And by the time, you've interviewed and you make that decision on whether you would or would not like to proceed, you do run the risk of the employer moving on or moving forward with another candidate.
Right. I think being able to provide communication and just keeping everybody in the loop also helps to strengthen like networking opportunity and like relationships in the long run. So like even if you have a candidate that isn't going to accept your offer, instead of ghosting the employer and saying I'm not going to respond or I'll just let them figure it out on their own.
Yes. Really
it's
important.
Like, okay, maybe later I might want to work for this company, so I need to like be professional in declining an actual offer.
Yes, you also just never know who may know who, or how things are tied together. And again, you never want to completely burn a bridge in that sense, but it is important to follow up, even if you do decide to decline, because there is a chance you may need that resource down in the future. So
right. So when you get an offer and you have, the firm says, okay, 1 to 2 days, we'd like an answer, but the student feels stressed. Can students try to extend an offer response deadline, or how would they sort of navigate that concern?
Yeah, so 2 ways. If you're unsure, or you're in the situation in which you're interviewing for multiple firms, I think politely asking at the end of the interview, hey, what does your time frame look like? Is it you guys are hoping to make a decision within a day, or is it a week? And that way you can give yourself a little bit of extra time if you need it. In the event that the employer says, hey, we are looking at hopefully making a decision within the next day or so. It's always considered professional to at least ask, as long as asking isn't, hey, I need an extra month or an extra 2 months. But usually the employer will understand if there's genuine interest, and, again, as long as the request isn't too lengthy.
Yeah, so reasonable within, a
Yep.
certain amount of time, which is good to remember too, because you wouldn't want to keep people waiting, like you said, a month or whatever, but a few extra days, good. And I think, again, going back to that open communication, that even if you ask for a little bit more time and then you still decline that, you're still providing that respect level to everyone that was involved. So anyone who interviewed you, the firm as a whole, and I think ourselves too, to say, look, my self-worth is great, and I really appreciate you, reaching out and wanting to have me on your team. But I've, decided to go this route instead. And so I think that that's important to remember.
Yes, absolutely. I agree 100%.
Cool. So yeah, no ghosting. It's good. The importance of communicating and throughout the whole entire recruitment process. Do you have any last advice or thoughts on why communication is so important during this time?
Yeah, I will. I just say communication, no matter whether it's interviewing or just person-to-person connections, it's always going to be important. Again, because you just never know how and when you might, need someone that you've previously interviewed for, or, even with our firm, if someone may decide to decline for whatever reason, and we may have an opportunity, or, our company may be sponsoring something, even candidates who have potentially, declined, we may still reach out for different opportunities that we might think could benefit them, even if it doesn't directly come, through working with WBL. So communication will always be appreciated, and, the more communication, the better.
Right. Absolutely. Great. Well, thank you for chatting with us today about ghosting and not doing that. Well, the new term of 2020 seems to be ghosting, so it's always good not to do so.
Yes, you never know who you might need. So
yes.
ghosting is bad. So cool.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Amanda.